Now in this session we will be discussing about tuples and dictionary. So these two things are combined together in the last chapter. So now let us continue. Now this will be the outline for chapter 10. So this chapter will be covered in 5 video sessions. The first 3 video sessions will be dedicated for tuple, and in the last 2 video sessions, part 4 and part 5, we will study about dictionary. Now we are going to start with part 1. Here we are going to introduce the data type called tuple. Now let us discuss about tuple. So tuple is an ordered sequence. So now you understand tuple belongs to sequence data type. Now in the first chapter, you remember under sequence there are 3 types of data types defined in Python. The first one was string, the second one was list, and the third one is tuple. So in the previous chapters we have already studied string and list, and now we are going to study about tuple. So what I want you to understand is that string, list and tuple belongs to the same family of data type called sequence. So if you understand all the operations that we have done on string and list, then tuple is going to be very easy for you, because we are going to repeat the same concept over tuple. And almost all the built-in functions which we have studied with string and list works the same way with tuple. So now again, if you read, you can understand tuple is an ordered sequence. Now this also we have discussed before. What do you mean by ordered? Tuple preserves the order of elements that you have stored inside it. If you make an entry of some numbers into tuple, for example like 1, 10, 6 and 7. So this tuple has 4 elements inside it. Now you see this element 10 belongs to the second position or index number 1. So each time if you access the element at position 2, you will always get value 10, because tuple preserves the order in which data is stored inside it. Now the next statement, it can have elements of different data type inside it. We have an example coming. Now the elements that you are going to store inside the tuple is finally enclosed in a round bracket, right? So you have to use this bracket for creating a tuple. Now when you study list, you remember we use square bracket for creating a list. If you use a round bracket, you will be creating a tuple instead. Now you see this example. Now this variable tuple1 is going to store a tuple, because on the right side you can see we are creating a tuple. You see the bracket, right? This rounded bracket. So now the interpreter understands what it sees to the right side of this assignment operator is a tuple, and the entire elements in the tuple will be copied into variable tuple1. So now let us see the content of this tuple. So here you can see we have a float value as the first element, 2.3. Then we have an integer 5. And after that you come again, here we have a string called hi inside it. We have a list with 2 elements inside it, 40 and 50, and also we have a small tuple inside this master tuple. Okay, so this thing is another tuple. Okay, and this tuple has 2 elements inside it, 21 and 45. Now if you ask me how many elements are there in tuple 1, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This entire list will be taken as the 6th element. This entire tuple will be taken as the 7th element. So altogether I have 7 elements inside tuple 1. Okay, so now let us continue. Now in this slide we are going to study some more examples related to tuple. So here I am creating a new variable tuple1, and to this variable I am going to assign a tuple, and this tuple has only integer values inside it. Now in the next statement you can see I am creating a new variable tuple2, and inside there I have a mix of data types. So first you have a string, then you have an integer, then you have another string, and then you have a float. Okay, so this is also valid. This tuple will be stored into variable tuple2. In the third statement, I am creating a new variable tuple3, and it is storing this tuple inside it. Now this tuple have a list element within it. So this is a list and it has 2 elements inside it. Now in the last statement, I am creating a new variable tuple4 for storing this tuple, and inside this tuple I have a subtuple with 2 elements, 100 and 200 inside it. Okay, so all these tuples are valid. So that's why tuple can have any data types inside it. So it can have a string, float, integer, or another list or another tuple inside of it. Okay, so now let us continue. Now here we are going to study some additional features of tuple. Now if you have a special condition where you have to assign a single element into a tuple, so you have only one number or one element to be stored into a tuple, then how you can do that? So in this case, so this is kind of a special case. Okay, so in this case, element should be always followed by a comma even though you don't have another element inside it. In this example, I want to create a tuple with only single value inside it, which is going to be 50. So if you simply write like this, tuple 1 is equal to, in round bracket, 50. Here the problem is that interpreter will consider this value as an integer, and then this integer value will be copied into tuple 1. So which means the data type of tuple 1 is going to be int. It is not going to be a tuple. So if you want to make it a tuple, simply put a comma after this so that interpreter understands this is a single element tuple, and now tuple 1 will be created with data type tuple. Okay, so this is the right way to input a single value into a tuple. Now in the next feature, if you create a sequence separated by comma and you forget to give any parenthesis or brackets at all, now in that case, that sequence will be taken as a tuple by default. What I mean here is that if you want to store value like 20, 16, 15 and 100 into a sequence variable, so here I will give a variable name as sequence. So here you can see I didn't give any bracket. So if I give a square bracket, then interpreter clearly understands I want to create a list. If I give a round bracket, then interpreter clearly understands I want to create a tuple. But here I forget to give, or I didn't give any bracket at all. In this case, interpreter is going to consider it as a tuple, not as a list, as a tuple. So by default, if you don't provide the bracket, then those elements will be stored inside the computer as a tuple. So in this example, you can see I didn't give any bracket for this sequence 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Interpreter will take the default data type as tuple and load it into this variable sequence. So the data type of this variable sequence is going to be tuple if you don't give any bracket. So if you want to double check that, you can just print the value of sequence, seq. Okay, so in the output, it will come with rounded brackets. So now you can understand inside the memory, it is actually stored as a tuple. Accessing elements in a tuple. This is going to be really easy for you because we have done the same thing for string and for list. So indexing is used to access element in a tuple. Index ranges from 0 to n minus 1. Okay, so we know this because the first element is going to get index 0, second element inside the tuple will get index 1, and the last element inside the tuple will always have n minus 1, provided that n is the length of the elements inside tuple. Now tuple 0 represents the first element in the tuple because 0 is the position given for the first element, and tuple n minus 1 represents the last element of the tuple. You can also have negative indexes, same like string and list. Negative index starts from minus 1 to minus n. So the last element will have index value minus 1. The value before that will have index minus 2, minus 3. It goes all the way up till, and the first element will have index value minus n if you're going to work with negative index. And here you can see tuple minus 1 represents the last element of the tuple, and tuple minus n represents the first element of the tuple. So when we take example program, we will clearly understand the concept of index, and using index how we can access individual elements inside a tuple. This is going to be our first program to demonstrate tuple indexing. So here I've created a variable tuple1 which stores this tuple inside it. So let us see how many elements are there in this tuple. And if I write the index value over here, the first element 34 will have index 0, the second element 5.6 will have index 1, and the third element, which is a string called length will have index value as 2. If you want to access individual elements inside tuple, you have to use the name of the tuple variable and inside square bracket you have to give the index. So whether you are working with a string or a list or a tuple, when you want to work on the index value, always remember you have to give the square bracket. Okay, because index value works with square bracket only. Now with the first print statement, I am trying to print the value inside tuple 1 at index position 0. So you can see at index position 0, the value I have is 34. So this print statement will print value 34. The second print statement will try to print the value available at position 1. So that is 5.6. So that will be printed out. The third print statement is trying to print the value available at index position 2. So that is this complete string. So here the output is going to be the string that you have stored over there. Now after that I'll print some stars. Now in the next two print statement, I'm going to use negative indexes. So with negative indexes, always remember the last element is going to be -1. The element before that is -2, and the element before that is going to be -3. So these are the negative indexes for this tuple. Now in this fifth print statement, I'm trying to print the value available in tuple 1 at index position -1. So here you can see -1 points to the string lens learn. So here again the output will come as lens learn, and the last print statement will try to take the value available at index -2. -2 points to 5.6, so the output is going to be 5.6. Of course, you don't require all this explanation, because I know that if you understand string and list properly, this is the same repetition, right? It's working the same way. So now let me run this program for you. Now program is ready. I will just run it. Now you can see the result matches exactly our discussion. So the first three print statements are taking value based on positive indexes. You can see the result is coming here. And after that, I'm printing some star just to separate the output. So that is printed over here. Last two print statement, print value based on negative indexes. You can see it is working on the same tuple and same result is coming out. So now let us continue. There is one fundamental difference between tuple and list. List is mutable, which means you can change it, but tuple is immutable. Once you create it, which means once you store value into a tuple, after that you cannot change individual values inside a tuple. It is not allowed. So now let us see. Contents of a tuple cannot be changed after its creation. Okay, so here you can see the example. I'm going to create a new tuple called tuple 1 with these values inside it, 23, 45.78 and high. And after that, inside my program, if I give this line, it will give error. So what happens here? I'm trying to change the value available at index position 2. So this 23 is available at index 1, 45.78 is available at index 1, and high is available at index 2. So in this statement, I am trying to put a new value hello into this position of high. So I am trying to delete this high and write there hello. This operation will give an error because tuple is immutable. You cannot change a tuple after you have created it. So this will display the following error message. So the error that is shown is type error. It will show tuple object does not support item assignment. This we have already seen in the first chapter. But there is an exception. That is why I told you in the first place, list is mutable, tuple is immutable. Now we will take a special condition where inside our tuple we have a list. So now in that case, that list can be changed. Okay, but tuple cannot be changed. Now let us see with an example. So if an element inside tuple is of mutable data type, example a list, it can be changed without any error. When you see this example, you'll understand. I have created a new tuple, tuple 1. Now inside here I have some integer elements, and the last element inside the tuple, you can see it is a list. And I told you before, list is mutable. So now let me put the index value. So the first element 1 is available at index 0, second element is available at index 1, the third element is available at index 2, fourth element at index 3. Now you see, as for this tuple 1, this entire list is actually available at the fourth index position. Now you see inside this fourth index position, I have a list. Now list will also create another index value for storing individual elements inside it. So the first element 10 will have index value 0 and the second element 20 will have index value 1 inside this sublist. So now if you want to access this value 10, then you have to write like this: tuple 1 at index value 4. So now I am referring to this list. You can see index value 4. Now inside index value 4, I want to access index value 0. So inside 4 at index 0, now I am accessing value 10. And after that, if you want to store a new value into this position, I can do that. I can put 50 over there. So now this 10 will be deleted and 50 will be accepted in this place. Why? Because we were not changing the tuple. We were trying to change a list which was inside the tuple, right? So changing the value of list is allowed. So in this case, you will not get any error. Now if you want to change the next element 20 to 50, you can give this index value, okay? 4 and 1. So now we are referring to 4 and index value 1. So now we are going to change this 20 to 50. So this 20 also will be changed to 50 without any problem. So here the output, you can see the last element is changed to 50. Now let us go to our programming environment and create a small tuple and try to change its value, and let's see how it works. Now I'm just going to type my program in the shell itself, okay, because it's not a full-fledged program. I just wanted to understand some concept, that's it. So I have created a new tuple called tuple1 with its values 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now let me try to change this 3 to 10. Okay, now for that I will give tuple1. Now I have to provide the index where the value 3 is available. The second element 3 will have index value 1, so I will give index 1, and to this position I want to store the new value 10, and when I press enter, you can see I got error. It says tuple object does not support item assignment. So this is why I told you, you cannot change the value inside an existing tuple. So now I just want to print the ID of tuple1. So now we can see this is the representation of memory location where tuple1 is storing value 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So now I am going to create again a tuple1, okay, with different value 5, 7, 2, maybe 20. So now when I press enter, what is going to happen? I told you many times tuple is immutable, right? And we tried to change the value of a tuple and we got an error. So right now I'm trying to change the entire tuple with new values. So what is going to happen? So now when I press enter, you see I didn't get any error. Now you will have a confusion. Then how we can say tuple is immutable? You can see earlier I have tuple1 with these values, and now you can see I have just changed the values assigned in tuple1. But you should understand this tuple1 and this tuple1 are completely different. Even though they have the same name in memory, they are two different things. That is why Python says tuple is immutable. I actually created a new memory location, and in there I store 5, 7 to 20 as a new tuple. It is not like rewriting the old tuple, it is a complete new tuple, and the name of this tuple happened to be same as the tuple before. So now to make it clear to you, I will print the memory location that is given to tuple1 now. Now you see the ID value has completely changed. So that is why we say tuple is immutable. So with this we'll wind up this video. See you in the next session.